What happens when the fear that has defined a nation for, well, 30 years finally confronts its consequence?
Yeah, we're talking about a dictatorship built on paranoia, absolute control.
And the terrible, often silent demands it made on its citizens. Today, we're kind of opening a door into that world.
And we are doing it with a slightly different approach this time. We want you to discover a new, in-depth approach to book coverage with this extended summary.
Right. Unlike our previous review, which was more as a focused analysis, this feature gives you a really comprehensive overview.
We're tracing the intellectual roots, the key arguments, and the real-world impact of this subject.
And please, if you appreciate this expanded format, if you find it helpful, do let us know. Your feedback really will help shape future content.
Okay, so our subject is Mario Vargas Llosa's powerful work of historical fiction, The Feast of the Goat. It came out in 2000.
And this book, it just throws you right into the final brutal moments and the long, long shadow cast by the dictator Rafael Trujillo in the Dominican Republic.
It's quite the experience.
As we guide you through this, it's a complex narrative. Remember, this is a deep dive driven by analysis. You are experiencing a unique two-host AI conversation powered by Google's NotebookLM.
All aimed at giving you deeper, more dynamic book summaries.
Our job really is to show you why this novel isn't just history. It's a terrifying portrait of power.
Definitely. So let's unpack the world of the goat, as he was known. The main setting is Santo Domingo.
Which, chillingly, was actually renamed Ciudad Trujillo during the dictatorship.
A constant reminder, wasn't it, of the regime's all-encompassing reach.
And the timeline. It's fractured, jumps around, and that's very intentional.
Right. The story doesn't just stick to the assassination in May 1961.
No, it spans the height of the regime, say in the 1950s, and then leaps forward 35 years, all the way to 1996.
And this layering of time, this temporal interlacing, allows Llosa to really show the pervasive atmosphere of the era.
He details the everyday oppression, the deep-seated corruption.
And the violence, which wasn't just random, it was strategic, maintained.
You get the sense that the very air citizens breathed was just thick with fear and silence.
And this is where the structure gets really interesting. It's not just a straight historical telling.
No, he uses these frequent, sometimes almost dizzying shifts in time and perspective.
Exactly. And this structure, it's not just for show, it's a thematic tool.
How so?
Well, Llosa alternates between a first-person view, very intimate, usually Urania's thoughts, and then a third-person, more objective view of the political machinery, the dictator, the assassins.
So it forces you, the reader, to confront how history is both personally felt and, I guess, politically engineered.
Precisely. And these different viewpoints come together in three main intertwined story strands that really define the novel.
Okay, what are they?
So the first strand is the return of Urania Cabral in 1996. Now, Urania is a fictional character. She's a successful lawyer in New York. She comes back to Santo Domingo after being away for decades.
And this return forces her to confront her past, her family.
Yes, her aging, disgraced father, and, crucially, the horrific secret trauma that made her flee all those years ago.
Okay, that's strand one, Urania.
Strand two focuses entirely on Trujillo's final day, May 30th, 1961.
The day he was assassinated.
Exactly. The dictator, Rafael Leonidas Trujillo Molino, the GOAT, is shown in almost excruciating detail.
We see his declining health, his paranoia getting worse.
And his almost insane obsession with maintaining control, both sexually and politically.
Wow. So it really tracks his day.
Meticulously. His routine, his interactions with his inner circle, and the specific plan he has for that evening. A plan that really underscores the repulsive entitlement that defined his rule.
Okay, so Urania's return, Trujillo's last day. What's the third strand?
The third strand follows the conspirators, the assassins.
The ones who planned to kill him.
Yes, these were former government officials, military officers. The chapters focusing on them jump between their tense preparations.
I can imagine.
The final moments leading up to the ambush on the highway. And then the immediate, terrifying fallout after it happens.
So putting it all together, Llosa seems to be showing that the trauma didn't just end when Trujillo died.
Not at all. The past is always bleeding into the present in this book.
Let's maybe dig into the personal cost of this tyranny a bit more. Starting with Urania, you said her story is the emotional heart.
It really is. She's portrayed as highly intelligent, very successful, professionally in New York, but completely estranged from her family, emotionally shut down, scarred.
And the reason for that scar is devastating.
Yes. The book reveals that her father, Agustin Egghead Cabral, who was once a powerful senator high up in the regime, essentially sacrificed her to Trujillo
Sacrificed
in a
her.
desperate and ultimately failed attempt to win back the dictator's favor after he'd fallen from grace.
That's horrifying. And it's not just about her personal tragedy, is it?
No, that specific act, the degradation involving a child, it illustrates exactly how Trujillo's power worked.
Honey,
He demanded not just obedience, but total personal humiliation, even from his closest allies. It proved his absolute dominion over their lives, their bodies, their families.
It's the ultimate political betrayal, but played out in the most intimate way possible.
Right. And Urania's confrontation with her family back in 1996, where she finally forces them to acknowledge what happened, it's central to understanding the lifelong scar left by that regime.
And what about Trujillo himself, the dictator's mind? How is he portrayed?
As this walking contradiction. Outwardly charismatic, holding court, projecting power,
But inwardly.
privately crumbling.
Yeah.
He uses terror and manipulation masterfully, sure, but he's also battling these profound psychological demons, severe health issues, incontinence, impotence, things that terrified him because they signaled a loss of control.
And Llosa connects Trujillo's personal issues to the national reality.
Absolutely. His plan to meet Urania on his final day, it underscores that his personal excesses weren't separate from his governance. They were intrinsic to it.
He saw the nation as his personal playground, essentially.
Pretty much. It's people as objects for his control and gratification.
And to maintain that control, he needed enforcers. Agents of terror.
Yes, and the primary historical figure the book highlights here is Colonel Johnny Abbas Garcia, the head of the SIM, the intelligence service.
What was he like?
He's depicted as the face of institutionalized sadism, cunning, utterly without conscience.
The one orchestrating the killings, the torture.
Exactly. The man responsible for the disappearances, the climate of fear that kept people paralyzed. He's the physical manifestation of the system's cruelty.
Wow. Looking at the sheer weight of this history and the psychological depth Llosa goes into, it really does make you pause and reflect more broadly.
It absolutely does. And speaking of reflection, this seems like a good moment to mention mindful moments.
Right.
That's our YouTube channel offering AI book analysis, summaries, and critiques. It really aims to inspire reflection and rational thought.
Definitely check it out. Now let's pivot a bit from the psychological darkness of the regime to the desperate, violent act that tried to end it, the assassination plot.
Right, the conspiracy. And the conspirators weren't some uniform group of shining heroes.
No.
They were complex figures. Military men, former officials, often driven by a mix of regime injustices, yes, but also intensely personal reasons, personal tragedies.
So their motivations highlight the moral gray areas in something like this. Overthrowing a dictator.
For sure. Take Antonio de la Maza. He was seeking vengeance, plain and simple, for his brother's murder by the regime.
Okay, personal vendetta.
Then there's Amadito Garcia Guerrero. He was a young military lieutenant, part of Trujillo's guard, actually. He joined partly out of bitterness over specific injustices he suffered under the regime.
So more direct experience of the system's unfairness.
Yeah. And you also have men like Juan Tomás Diaz, a former general pushed out of the army, maybe fighting to restore his honor.
And Salvador Estrella Turk Sadhala.
His decision seems more driven by moral and religious conviction, a sense that Trujillo's rule was fundamentally evil,
So they're united by hating the goat.
but divided by their personal stakes, and maybe even their vision for what came next.
They pull off the assassination, but what happens immediately after?
It's chaos. And for most of them, it's a catastrophe.
The regime strikes back hard.
Instantly.
Yeah.
Swift, brutal purge. Anyone even remotely connected to the plot is targeted. Most of the assassins we follow are either killed in firefights or captured.
Subjected to.
Unimaginable torture. The book doesn't shy away from that.
Is there anyone specific whose fate stands out?
The fate of José René Pupo Roman is particularly harrowing. He was a key military figure who was supposed to mobilize troops right after the assassination, but he hesitated, failed to act decisively.
He was caught.
Yes. His capture and subsequent torture really underscore how ruthlessly the remaining loyalists, especially Trujillo's son Ramphis, tried to crush any hope of a quick transition.
But did any of the core conspirators make it?
Yes. Crucially, the book highlights the survival of Antonio Ember Pereira. He was one of the main shooters.
And he evaded capture.
He managed to hide and survive the purge. His later recognition as a national hero is a key part of the transition story. It stands in really sharp contrast to the tragic end of most of his comrades.
And the political shifts that followed. Was it a clean break?
Anything but. The dictatorship's legacy didn't just vanish. Joaquin Balaguer.
The real-life president who was serving as a sort of puppet under Trujillo.
That's him. He very shrewdly maneuvered himself into real power after Trujillo's death and the ensuing chaos. He dominated Dominican politics for decades afterwards.
So the old guard, in a way, persisted.
And then there was the brief, terrifying return of Rafael Romfis Trujillo Martinez, the dictator's son.
You mentioned him leading the purge.
Yes, he was known for being incredibly violent and spoiled. He flew back and desperately tried to keep the regime going through sheer brutality and vengeance before eventually being forced out.
So bringing it all together thematically, what's the novel saying?
It's powerful. The struggle for justice in the Dominican Republic is shown as agonizingly difficult, protracted.
The destructive nature of political power, betrayal, revenge, those are clearly central themes.
Absolutely. And Llosa masterfully shows that personal suffering, Urania's trauma being the prime example, is completely inseparable from the national violence. One mirrors the other.
Vargas Llosa uses such rich historical detail, the dialogue feels real, and that complex, multi-layered structure we talked about.
It all comes together to create this comprehensive, really nuanced recounting of a critical, dark period in Caribbean history.
Which explains why the book got such wide acclaim, doesn't it? Its literary significance and historical insight are undeniable.
It really immerses you in the psychological burden of memory. It shows you those precise moments of state terror.
And the decades of silence that often follow.
So maybe the question the book leaves us with is this. What does the Feast of the Goat ultimately teach us about the difference between just surviving tyranny and truly recovering from it?
Right. When the physical tyrant is gone, how long does it take? How long must a nation and an individual fight to escape those psychological scars left behind?
That distinction, survival versus recovery, that's the heavy question still hanging in the air after you finish the book.
It certainly is.
For more analysis, click the link on screen for the in-depth book critique. And please subscribe, share, purchase via the link if you're interested, and always think rationally.
And don't forget to check out the many genre-based book discussions at Mindful Moments. Subscribe and nourish your mind on the go.